Welcome back to the Tom Sense Show. I am Tom Sense, and we are on the air right now with the news the mainstream media is too terrified to tell you. Before we get into the fire tonight, a quick reminder that we do things differently here. You do not have to wait until the end of the show to get your voice heard. If you have a real question about what is happening in the world, drop it in the chat on YouTube or over on X at any point during the broadcast. I will take the questions worth answering and address them right here in the middle of the news. No noise, just real talk. Now, let us get into the stories they do not want you to hear. We start tonight with some real American power returning to the world stage. President Donald Trump has drawn a massive line in the sand, threatening military action against Oman over a shady maritime deal they are trying to finalize with the regime in Iran. This agreement would let them coordinate shipping traffic right through the strategic Strait of Hormuz. Oman and Iran want to run the exit route of this critical channel together and start collecting voluntary fees from passing ships. Let us be honest about what is happening here. Iran is trying to build a toll booth on the highway of global trade, and Oman is handing them the wood to build it. President Trump is not having any of it. He declared that the United States naval blockade on Iranian ports remains in full force, and he completely shut down any talk of negotiations with Tehran. Now, the Iranian regime is trying to play tough, pretending the United States pressure does not bother them, while Omani officials are running around trying to calm things down. The Washington foreign policy establishment is probably having a collective panic attack right now, crying about diplomacy and international norms. But the plain truth is that under President Trump, the days of letting hostile nations choke off the world economy while we write polite letters are over. If you try to shake down global shipping with our greatest enemy in the region, do not be surprised when the United States military shows up to clear the lane. We are protecting American interests, and we are doing it with strength. The White House is hosting an emergency cryptocurrency summit today, and it is a massive gathering of financial heavyweights. President Donald Trump, Securities and Exchange Commission Chair Paul Atkins, and Commodity Futures Trading Commission Chair Michael Selig are meeting with the absolute top executives in the digital asset world. We are talking about the leaders of Coinbase, Ripple, Gemini, and Polymarket, along with executives from NASDAQ and the CME. Why the sudden rush? It turns out the odds of the Clarity Act passing in the Senate collapsed from 82% all the way down to 19%, just ahead of a critical September 15th vote. Congress is doing what Congress does best, which is absolutely nothing. They dragged their feet, let the momentum die, and now the entire legislative path is in tatters. But instead of sitting around crying about Senate gridlock, the Trump administration is stepping up to lead. They are moving to establish their own regulatory framework and coordinate directly with the new Innovation Advisory Committee at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Think about this for a second. If the federal government ran its own offices with the speed and efficiency they expect from the private sector, we would have solved the national debt by lunchtime. Since Congress cannot get the job done, the executive branch is bypassing the red tape and sitting down with the people who actually build these companies to write the rules of the road. This is what real business leadership looks like in the White House. Turning now to some very sad news out of East Africa. 7 people have died following a helicopter crash in Kenya on Wednesday morning. The helicopter was carrying 6 tourists and a pilot when it went down at Ololokwe Mountain in Samburu. The Kenya Civil Aviation Authority reports that the aircraft went down at approximately 9:13 in the morning local time while it was traveling from Luwazaba to Uwasonyaro. Eyewitnesses near Kirish reported seeing thick smoke and flames rising from the rugged crash site shortly after the impact. Local police have launched a preliminary investigation to confirm the identities of the victims and to find out what caused the crash, but authorities have confirmed that no survivors were recovered from the scene. The terrain around Mount Ololokwe is notoriously rugged and difficult to access, which has made the recovery operation incredibly challenging for local rescue teams. This is an absolute tragedy for the families of the tourists and the pilot who lost their lives so suddenly. Our thoughts and prayers are with the loved ones of everyone on board as they deal with this devastating loss. Now, for an update on a story we brought you earlier concerning our battle with globalist institutions, the International Criminal Court is absolutely furious about the latest round of United States sanctions, calling them a flagrant attack on their judicial independence. This comes after the State Department announced asset freezes against International Criminal Court President Tomoko Akane and Senior Prosecutor Abdoulaye Say. Our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, defended the sanctions by calling the court a corrupt and fatally politicized body that constantly goes beyond its mandate to threaten the sovereignty of the United States and our allies. The court in the Netherlands has responded by vowing to continue its investigations anyway, claiming that the international legal order is at risk. Let us look at the plain facts here. This is an unelected body of foreign bureaucrats sitting in Europe, trying to tell the United States of America what we can and cannot do to protect our own people. They want all the power of a global government with absolutely zero accountability to the American voters. It is the ultimate globalist power trip. If these foreign lawyers want to play politics and target American citizens, they should not be surprised when we freeze their bank accounts and lock them out of our financial system. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is doing exactly what needs to be done by putting American sovereignty first and showing these global institutions that they do not rule over us. A whistleblower named Haley Van Arum has filed a formal complaint claiming that the Trump administration's civil rights investigations into Ivy League universities are politically rigged. Van Arum, who works inside the federal task force, alleges that the investigations are skipping standard procedures to force these wealthy universities into quick legal settlements for political points. She claims investigators were told to ignore certain evidence and constitutional protections just to keep the pressure on higher education. The administration has firmly denied this, saying the investigations are purely about protecting students from discrimination. Let us be completely honest here. For years, these elite Ivy League universities have allowed their campuses to become hotbeds of radicalism, where Jewish students are harassed and open hostility is celebrated in the name of free speech. But the moment the federal government steps in to hold them accountable and enforce civil rights laws, suddenly the administrators and their friends in the bureaucracy start crying about administrative procedures and unfair pressure. It is the classic double standard. They love rules when they can use them to silence conservatives, but they hate them when they are held to the exact same standard. We are not going to shed any tears for Ivy League schools facing pressure to keep their students safe. The Department of Education is doing its job, and it is about time someone stood up to these out-of-touch academic institutions. Finally tonight, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled against the administration's strategy for appointing federal prosecutors. The court decided that the Department of Justice can bypass the Senate's advice and consent power by keeping unconfirmed interim officials in charge of federal prosecutor offices indefinitely. This ruling hits the Trump-appointed prosecutor Sigel Chadha, who has been leading the United States Attorney's Office in Nevada without being confirmed by the Senate. The judges ruled that giving unconfirmed officials different titles while letting them do the full job violates federal law. Nevada senators are celebrating this decision, while supporters of the administration argue the executive branch must have the power to manage these offices during vacancies to keep our streets safe. Look, we all know how the game is played in Washington, D.C. The Senate Democrats love to drag their feet and delay confirmations for months, if not years, just to keep conservative prosecutors from doing their jobs and cleaning up our cities. Then, when the administration finds a legal way to keep the offices running and prosecute criminals, the courts step in to protect the bureaucracy. If the Senate actually spent as much time confirming qualified prosecutors as they do fighting to protect their own red tape, we might actually see crime go down in this country. But the administration is going to keep fighting for law and order, no matter how many legal hurdles they throw in our path. That is our show for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Keep demanding the truth, and I will see you next time.